Now, on Thursday, I was at the Toitu Te Tiriti activation, right? And that was the activation that Te Pāti Māori organised, because that's what they do. It's their kind of little branch off from their party that they use to activate their little group of radicals or those who are none the wiser to oppose the government whenever they say go. It's a little bit controlling, to be fair. They could essentially in the future just say, hey guys, we're not happy with this group of people meeting over here. We're going to activate you to assert your sovereignty. There is the potential here that this turns into something a little bit more sinister. Nonetheless, when I was there on Thursday, it was very, very lethargic. And this is with respect to the Auckland one. Other ones might have been a bit better. But the issue was they met at Aotea Square. The sound system was very poor. You could barely hear anything that was being said. And people, generally speaking, were either disengaged or kind of trying to listen but had no idea what was going on because they couldn't hear anything. The actual march down Queen Street itself was fine. It was, there was noise in pockets, but people were just marching, having a family day out, really. It was uneventful. There was not much to say about it. That being said, it was only done because Te Pāti Māori wanted all eyes on them. They wanted all the attention to be taken away from the budget for whatever reason. They also wanted to capitalise on the budget and claim it's not doing anything for Māori, and therefore this justifies what they're doing even more so. They wanted all the eyes on them, and that's because they declared Te Pāti Māori that they wanted Māori political independence. Or that they were just declaring that Māori do have political independence as of right now because they say so. Because they don't believe that the Crown, the government, has any authority over Māori whatsoever, and as such, the idea that they have any right to make laws for Māori, that any of the laws of the Crown, any of the laws of the New Zealand government apply to Māori is preposterous in their eyes. It just doesn't make sense. It's just not true. They don't view it that way. So regardless of the petition that they've sent out getting signatures, they have declared Māori political independence. Simple. And they've had a massive hui since discussing exactly that. And so here is Te Pāti Māori, I believe, Rawiri Waititi himself, declaring this. Today we had the conversation. We have started the conversation. We started the wānanga to organise ourselves in the rangatiratanga, which is the self-determination, the rangatiratanga space. Today we have started the revolution. This is what I meant. Last week I stated they're stoking a revolution, and they've now also officially declared a revolution. We will no longer let decisions made by this house determine our oranga, the oranga of our people, our mokopuna, the land, and te iwi Māori katoa. We now begin the process of establishing our own parliament. Our people will design what this looks like for us, nobody else. Very, very clear. Māori political independence. They don't recognise the sovereign. They don't recognise the laws of parliament. They were making their own parliament. And no one except Māori dictates how that parliament is going to look. Simple. That is what they declared on Thursday. That's why they wanted all eyes on them. Of course, News Hub called it a stunt. Because they're ignorant, because they don't do a little bit of research. Not even a little bit. This is very, very consistent with their policy for a long time. But that's what it is. The media aren't remotely taking this seriously. They think this will blow over. They think Te Pāti Māori will just whatever. In fact, I'm getting the impression that even if they come to the realization that Te Pāti Māori's serious, they don't actually care. That it's just going to be something to cover, and it's just, oh yeah, whatever. It's just constitutional change, whatever. It doesn't matter if it's not going through the democratic process. Doesn't matter if no one seems to care. The thing is, the reason why the general public isn't outraged about this is because the media isn't telling them. Unless you watch The Platform, unless you watch the Eerjk McRae show right here, unless you follow the right people on social media, you will be utterly clueless as to the true extent of what's actually going on. You may have heard on News Hub or One News that Māori have declared political independence, but you've likely also heard that it's just a petition. A petition, which they don't actually care about, it's just there to use as leverage. Because if they can get enough signatures, then they can leverage the government. They can demonize the government further, saying, hey, look, you are going against the will of the people here, sir. They don't care. They don't even want a referendum on this. They just want to do what they want to do. They don't care. All of this is a ploy to do what they want and get away with it. I don't even think the government is going to be able to respond or is willing to respond until it's too late. News Hub the other day suggested that Te Pāti Māori was going to put together a proposal of the Māori Parliament and then bring it to government later in the year. As if somehow they were going to bring forward some bill that should be drafted and go through the parliamentary process and go through some process of having a referendum, some legitimate process. No, of course they don't. Have you not been listening to Te Pāti Māori? They do not recognise the system. They do not recognise Parliament. They do not recognise the sovereign. They don't care about what the Parliament says. They don't care about what the general public says. They don't care at all. They're not going to rely on Parliament to pass what they want going through. They don't care about that. They're not going to rely on a referendum hoping of the goodwill of the people to do what they want. No. They're going to bring something to the government and say, hey, government, this is what we're doing. You can either stand in our way or you can just let us pass gracefully. If you stand in our way, well, then I think we might have to go back to what Kitty Tamihere Waititi was saying, which was that we should just assert our sovereignty and do whatever we want. That is what's going to happen. They've stated outright that they can overthrow any government if they're united. This is a tool of unification, albeit by dividing an entire nation. Now, I'll just finish off by acknowledging that the Māori king, Kingi Tuheitia, he has acknowledged that this whole thing frightens him. The idea frightens him, whether he was just doing it in jest, which it was an element of a jest to what he said, but at the same time he looked like, I understand how Māori operate. I understand that Māori are tribal people, that Māori can be very, very stubborn, that Māori would certainly like to look out for number one, and when I say number one, I mean hapu before the broader context. So, he understands how complex that will be, especially if it's done in a way which is reliant on each hapu has representatives, and then obviously they want like a two-house system or an upper house and a lower house type vibe, whether or not that's going to be a lower house filled with, hapu representatives and an upper house filled with iwi representatives, or how they're going to do that, it'll be very, very complex, I imagine. But he acknowledges that this is going to be very complex. It is going to have a lot of friction throughout its entirety if it goes through. And I presume the intention is very much to push ahead with it. So he questioned, he's like, do you want to do this? Now, the other thing about this is they've outlined an intention to place Kingi Tuheitia in a spiritual guidance type role. Kind of above all else in the house, but as a spiritual guidance type role. Almost as if he's making a mockery of the role that the sovereign plays in our current government, in our current parliament. It's a ceremonial role, but you would argue it's one of spiritual guidance in theory, even though no one would listen to King Charles about what they should have for breakfast, to be fair. But I think you get my point, right? It's basically supplanting what the role of the monarch is in our current system and saying, hey, look, we're just going to replicate that in our Māori system just to really stick it to the man one little bit more. And I think that's arguably the most insulting part of it all.